Hey guys, what is going on? McMull2 here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm bringing you arena footage of a very unique team. It's got an Admiral Ackbar Lead with Princess Leia, R2-D2, Old Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Commander Luke Skywalker. This team, I've had some really nice fun with it. It's a very unique team. You don't see a lot of Ackbar Leads anymore. And thankfully, with the reworks to the New Hope characters, and with the introduction of Commander Luke Skywalker, this team has some really interesting uses now. It's a lot of heavy reliance on assists, and the plus 25 speed from the Ackbar leadership really helps make your rebels go faster. So it's sort of like a Tarkin lead for rebels instead of Empire. So we'll go ahead and talk about the mods that I'm running on this team, and then I'll talk about the overall strengths and weaknesses of this team, and what it's really strong against, and what characters you can use to counter this team. So let's go ahead and get into the characters and their mods, and we will go from there. First up, we're taking a look at Admiral Ackbar. You can see that I'm running speed mods on him. I have him up to 208 speed, so he's got some pretty decent speed added on from his mods. Overall, you can add on some additional health or defense to help him keep alive for longer, but really he's more here for his leadership. He's got a couple of buffs and a cleanse that's going to be nice. You can see I don't have any Omegas on him right now. I could probably throw some Omegas on him, and of course you can see his leadership ability has no Zetas on it yet, so maybe eventually down the road we can get a Zeta on his leadership to make things better, but overall speed and just kind of help bump up his defense and survivability overall. And then next up on the list we have Old Ben. You can see I'm also running speed on him. He's at 206 speed, just slower than Ackbar. That's for a reason I'll go into more detail. As well, you should also see that his mods, I've got protection on his triangle, and then some potency on his cross to help with the mind tricks debuffs, and then getting some speed on the arrow is going to be vital there. Overall, he is at gear 9 for my team, so he's not as strong as he should be, and you can also see I do not have any Omegas or Zetas on him yet. So down the road, once I get those abilities, Omega and Zeta, he's going to be better overall for this team. So keep in mind that right now, when you're watching these battles, that he's not as strong as he should be, and he could do much better than he does in these battles. So just keep that in mind, and you'll be able to see that even without the full gear and ability upgrades, he still does pretty well in this team. Next up, you have Princess Leia. You can see that I'm running crit chance and crit damage on her. She's at 234 base speed with these mods, so she's going pretty fast as it is. She has about 47% crit chance, and she has a very high amount of physical damage here at 3,400, over 3,400. So she's got a lot of bonus offense stacked in. You can see with the mods a lot of good secondary offense bonuses thrown in there. You can see that she's got 36% crit damage on her triangle. She has a speed arrow. You could potentially do an offense arrow instead, and then offense primary on her cross too. So she's got a lot of offense here. She's going to be your main damage dealer, so making sure you stack up the amount of damage she can do is going to be very vital here. And for her abilities, you can see I've got an Omega on her hair trigger and her rebel tactics. I do not have the Zeta on her against all odds, and her leadership ability is negligible because, again, I'm using Ackbar leadership here, so you don't need to worry about her leadership ability. Following that, we have R2-D2. You can see I'm running speed mods on him. He's at 255 base speed. You want to have him going as fast as possible because that's going to make sure that he gets his abilities out more often, like Smokescreen. That's really going to help with calling the assist under the Ackbar lead. The stun on his basic attack is going to be really nice there. So for abilities overall with Omegas, you definitely want to get the Omega on Smokescreen and Electroshock Prod. And then for his Zetas, you definitely want the Zeta for Number Crunch because it's really going to help him buff up the other allies around him with bonus health and protection offense. So getting that Zeta there is a really nice thing to have, and you don't really have to worry about the combat analysis Zeta yet, but it is recommended because it's going to be another cleanse for your team too, especially with the critical hits that are landing, especially with the critical hit buff coming from Leia whenever she's attacking. So getting that second Zeta on combat analysis is going to be nice to have, but it is by no means required. And wrapping it up, we have Commander Luke Skywalker. You can see that I have my best speed mods on him. He's at 272 base speed before the Ackbar leadership kicks in. You want him going as fast as possible. You want him to be the first character going because of his Use the Force special. That's really going to help take someone out of the fight on the other team. Think of it as a fracture like from Thrawn. So getting him to go first is really vital here. Plus, you also want to make sure you have a Zeta on It Binds All Things. That Zeta is going to be very helpful here because whenever he lands debuffs, it's going to end up giving Terminator to both him and the rest of his allies. The Zeta on Learn Control is also really helpful here because without the call to action buff, that means he's going to be hard to stun or ability block, and he's going to be countering a lot. So making sure you get that Zeta as well is going to be really helpful here. And of course for the Omegas, you definitely want to Omega his basic ability, and you definitely want to Omega his Use the Force and call to action. Getting all three of those Omegas is really going to be helpful here. So you really just want to make sure you throw your best speed mods on him. He doesn't have a lot of base potency outside of It Binds All Things, so getting some potency on that cross is really going to help him land more debuffs and making sure that he gives that turn meter to both himself and other allies. The main appeal of an Admiral Ackbar Lead is not just the bonus speed that he's giving and the bonus tenacity, but also anytime an ally uses a special that does not count as an attack, it calls a rebel ally to assist. And there's a lot of specials used on this team that do not count as attacks. You have R2-D2's Smokescreen, you have Princess Leia and her rebel tactics, you have Admiral Ackbar and his tactical genius and his It's a Trap specials, Old Ben and his taunt, his mind traces count as an attack. We'll go into more detail about that later. Also, Commander Luke Skywalker, his call to action does not call as attack, so he can also call an assist whenever he uses that, and that goes into the turn order for this team. You notice that I had Commander Luke Skywalker going first. What I'll usually do with him is I use his call to action so that he gains that buff, and then he calls an ally to assist, follows that up with use the Force to knock down a supporting character like Rex or Thrawn. It helps give them 0% turn meter and also gives them tenacity down and buff immunity. Helps take him out of the fight at the very beginning, which is really important, especially since that tenacity up from Rex can really give everybody on the enemy team a boost in turn meter and really mess up your turn order. And then I follow that with the Smokescreen from R2-D2. He will put that on Old Ben, and then I have Leia use her rebel tactics afterwards, and then of course R2-D2 Smokescreen calls an assist because it's not an attack. Leia uses her rebel tactics. She gains 100% turn meter plus the offense up and crit damage up, and she also calls an assist there as well. And then she can start hitting hard right out of the gate. She can go again right there and start really hitting on the enemy team. You'll see in these videos she hits for a lot. I follow that up with Admiral Ackbar. I'll use his tactical genius ability, and that will also call an assist. And then I follow that with Old Ben. I'll use his mind tricks, but thanks to the Tactical Genius buff, he now gains 100% turn meter, at which point I will then follow up with Devoted Protector, which allows him to taunt, and then he calls in an assist with that. So having that opening turn meter, there's a lot of assists there, there's a lot of buffing going on. It really helps get the ball rolling. It starts to snowball pretty quickly. There's a lot of assists coming out from your team, and it's really helping get that damage going early. Instead of having to spend all the time using buffs to help yourself get going, you can now get damage in as well. And that's the main appeal of the Admiral Ackbar leadership here, is not just the speed, but also all these assists is really going to help make things go much faster for you. So you can see, and as this fight goes on, as I'm using these abilities that do not count attacks, get a lot of assists called in, especially on Leia. If you can get Leia to call in on these assists, that's going to be incredibly deadly. You can see she's going to be hitting a good 20k usually once she gets going with all those buffs, and that's really nice to have here. So that is the main appeal of these Admiral Ackbar leadership abilities, is all these assists is really helping your team do a lot of damage really fast. Most of these fights are over in 1.5 to 2 minutes, so it's really nice to have. But the main weakness that comes to this team is two parts. You have Baze with his AoE Dispel, and then every time that your team gains a buff, he gains 5% turn meter, so he can use his AoE Dispel quite a lot, especially if Leia's attacking, giving those buffs to your team. So he can do those AoE Dispels, really knock out her damage potential, and really hamper your team overall. And also Darth Nihilus with his cooldown increases on Drain Force really helps mess up your team, especially in that opening rotation. If you can get in there and remove or increase the cooldowns for your team before you can start going, it's really going to hurt things. And finally, the one thing that can really hurt this team is Darth Maul, because of the AoE days that he can do, especially if you were to fight a Logray as well. Those two characters have days that can put on the entire enemy team, and if that happens, you cannot call in assist and you cannot counter. Commander Luke Skywalker has a pretty decent counter chance as it is, but with those days on him, he's not going to be able to counter, and there's not going to be a lot of assists called in. So those are your main three weaknesses: are Baze, Darth Nihilus, and Darth Maul / Logray. Those are really going to help hinder your team and make sure that you can't get your damage potential out. So that is the good strengths and weaknesses for this team. You guys are probably asking by now, what about Old Ben and his mind tricks? Why is that not calling an assist? And let's go ahead and talk about that. So with the Old Ben mind tricks, it inflicts debuffs on the enemy team and removes turn meter. And my question was, because of the Admiral Ackbar leadership, it clearly states that when an ally uses an ability that's not an attack, it calls a rebel ally to assist. My question is, why is Mind Tricks not calling an ally to assist? The answer I got back from the devs, which you'll see here on the screen, is that because the ability applies debuffs to the opposing team and removes turn meter, it is qualified as an attack and therefore will not call an assist under the Admiral Ackbar leadership. So this is something very interesting, and this is something I did not know personally. Hopefully some people learn this as well. I was unaware that abilities that don't deal damage but still inflict debuffs count as attacks. So this is something I wonder if you could combine this with something like, say, a Captain Phasma lead. Well, now because of that, you can use a Mind Tricks. It should be able to call an assist because it qualifies as an attack. So this is something interesting for people to keep an eye on and to keep in mind, is now that you know Mind Tricks counts as an attack, there's other possibilities now for Old Ben with that ability. And then finally, you guys are probably asking, what are some other characters I can use in this team? The one character that comes to mind really is the OG Han from the Rancor raid. His kit, his rework is now very good. If you throw that Zeta on him, he's going to be incredibly deadly in this team. He's always going to be double tapping. He has a very high counter chance. And of course, he has that stun on Deadeye, and his opening shot can do an irresistible and undodgeable stun. So he's a very good character for this team. Other tanks you can use in place of Old Ben are Baze. I like Scarecrow Pathfinder because whenever he counters, he can do a 15% turn meter boost to your entire team. So there's a lot of possibilities to switch in for this team. You don't have to use these 5. So it's a very, very diverse amount of rebels that you can use in this team. Of course, there's like, what, 30 rebels in this game. So there's a lot of rebels here you can use. So that is pretty much it for this video, guys. I'll let the last of these battles fight out. You've got a Zal team that I'm fighting that you'll see I struggle against, and yeah, just closing out with some of these teams I struggle against so you guys can see some of the struggles you're going to run to with this team. But anyways, guys, that is enough for me. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask below. Feel free to like and share this video, subscribe to my channel for more content in the future, and I will talk to you guys later.